thank you very much, everyone, for joining this session. Just in case you don't know, and this is your very first time, welcome to Deep Dive Wednesdays. And what Deep Dive Wednesdays are is we try and do a deep dive at the first Wednesday of each month, except when it falls during the half term. So they last for about an hour and a half. They start at 1 o'clock. We try and finish the deep dives by 1:30, and we try and leave 15 minutes for discussions and Q&A. We've already had two. The very first one was getting to know your students. The second one was about planning, lesson planning using TeacherMatic. And this one's a really interesting one. I really do think it's about simplifying feedback using AI. All right. So with that being said, let's get started. So today's session is from hours to minutes, simplifying feedback with TeacherMatic. So we're going to be looking at some newly developed and redeveloped generators. But before we do that, let's look at the agenda for today. So in this session, we're going to discuss the challenges of traditional feedback processes, highlight some key statistics on feedback workload in the UK, explore these two generators that I've told you about, one that we've really put a lot of effort in redeveloping based on feedback, and it's called the feedback generator. And there's another one that was called the SPAG generator. And because of the updates in the latest large language models, it's just got so much better, and I think it is quite reliable to give that SPAG feedback, and so important, because I think this really does open up a can of worms, you know, and it's something that you need to tread very carefully, and with great power comes great responsibility. So obviously we need to address these ethical considerations using these AI tools, and then hopefully we can conclude this session with a 15-minute interactive discussion and get your thoughts about this. But before we do that, I just want to address something about accessing these deep dives and these other webinars that we have. And as we said in the last webinar, our community webinar, we are going to sort of introduce a new redesigned top navigation where you'll be able to access all of these events in terms of these deep dives and the community webinars. So do look out for that within the next 2 weeks, and you'll be able to access that by going to resources and events. But I think the biggest one, just in case you haven't seen it, is something that we've introduced into the toolkit, the TeacherMatic page, login page, and that is basically something called Announce Kit, and it's a notification and announcement tool, and it allows us to really directly communicate with you important updates, new features, and, you know, these links to these webinars and deep dives. So to do that, you'll just see it on the far right. When you click on it, you'll be able then just to go to the information. All right, so it'll be right there on the right. And if there's a new message that you haven't seen, you'll see a pulsing green notification. All right. Also, please note this one down, and it's a link that I've created. I call it a dynamic URL, and essentially it means I'm going to have the latest registration page to my deep dives. All right, so please note that down and do share it with your colleagues. Okay. So with that being said, let's get started with this session. Okay. So research by UCL has shown that marking and lesson planning are indeed the two aspects of teachers' jobs that significantly contribute to increased workload, stress, and poor well-being. So a study by UCL, you know, the Institute of Education specifically, found that these tasks are often done during evenings, weekends, and holidays, which can lead to a decline in teachers' well-being. And some stats, right? Lecturers spend an average of 10 hours weekly on feedback, according to a 2019 survey. 68% of lecturers report excessive workload due to feedback tasks. And according to McKinsey, these world-renowned consultancy company, AI tools like TeacherMatic can reduce feedback workload by up to 30%. So those are some of the stats. I've spent 20 years in FE, and I've always tried to be as innovative and creative in how I reduce my workload, especially when it comes to marking. I used to love to give feedback, verbal feedback, in the moment feedback. But obviously, because of my workload, as soon as I left the classroom, it was quite difficult for me to give that written feedback. And what I tried to do throughout my whole career is try and explore the use of technology to alleviate that workload burden and leverage technology. For example, I used to use voice dictation, and I use voice dictation a lot today. So, I used to try and find ways where I can leverage, technology. For example, I used to have these self-assessment forms in Microsoft Forms that integrated the use of branching. So whenever a student said, yes, I have completed P1, right, another question comes up. And if they said no, another type of question comes up with a calendar field where they had to set the date. So I used to try and explore and leverage the use of technology just to facilitate some of that feedback and that marking. I also was a big fan of peer review, where students peer review each other's work. And I think rubrics are one of those best kept secrets in education. And I introduced the use of rubrics in terms of giving feedback on all sorts of things, but especially summative feedback. And because rubrics integrates in the platform that we used to use, which is Microsoft Teams for Education, it just made my marking and feedback that much easier. I also used to use checklists before the students would submit their work. I used to have a checklist for them where they had to tick everything before they could submit it to me. Right. And then obviously there's other strategies like prioritizing feedback, scheduling dedicated feedback time, maybe within the class, and adopt a balanced approach. Not all things are equal. Okay. So these are some of the strategies, to reduce that workload burden in terms of feedback. So I think it's really important to stress something before I introduce you to these tools, and that it is extremely and strongly recommended to use AI as a supplementary tool rather than a replacement for human judgment, right? So it's so important like that. Despite the many advancements, especially with the latest open AI model like ChatGPT 4.0, it's really advanced and it's come a long way, but it's not infallible and can produce errors and misinterpret responses. Therefore, human oversight, your insight, remains essential to ensure the accuracy and appropriateness of feedback provided to students. Right, so as I said, 4.0 has made significant strides, in providing more accurate, but educators like yourselves should approach its use with caution, ensuring that AI generated feedback is supplemented with human judgment. I'm going to say that again. It's supplemented with human judgment to maintain the quality and effectiveness of student assessments. All right, really, really important. And I think that we should also be transparent with students about the use of AI in the feedback process to maintain that trust and clarity. And I think these are discussions that we need to have within our community. And is this going to be set out in policies? I think these will be really interesting discussions to have between us. So just to reiterate, AI is a supplementary tool. It has to have human oversight, ensuring accuracy and appropriateness of the feedback. So with that being said, important points, ethical considerations, right? So AI systems may not fully understand the cultural, social, or individual nuances behind a student's work. For instance, a creative writing piece may intentionally break grammatical rules for stylistic reasons, which AI might flag as errors. So the recommendation here is that you should use the AI's feedback as a starting point and apply your professional judgment to interpret the nuances of a student's work. The next one is avoid over reliance. Okay, and essentially what that means is that while AI tools improve efficiency, over reliance on them might lead to a decline in teachers' ability to assess nuanced writing skills independently. That's very important. So, as we keep saying, you should use the tool to complement, not replace, right? So, cross checking AI feedback with the intended learning outcomes will help you ensure that it aligns with, with broader educational goals. So the next one is mitigate risks of bias and inaccuracies in feedback. So AI systems are trained on data that may include biases. For example, the tool might favor certain dialects or linguistic styles over others. So that could potentially disadvantage students from diverse backgrounds. So we, as TeacherMatic, and as educators, and you as teachers and educators, must regularly audit the tool's performance for biases or inaccuracies, right? You should always, and us, of course, remain vigilant in identifying and correcting these errors to ensure fair and inclusive feedback. And just finally, how can we balance efficiency with ethical responsibility? So obviously the primary advantage of these AI tools is their ability to save time and provide consistent feedback. However, ethical considerations such as fairness, inclusivity, and respecting students' individuality must not be compromised for the sake of efficiency. So some recommendations: make sure that there is human oversight. So combine this feedback with teacher input to ensure fairness and context awareness. And it's like what we keep saying, TeacherMatic is a strong first draft. So basically, if you were creating a lesson plan, it's this pre-generated content using AI, and your creativity and your insight and your specialism and your expertise is the combination of both that will maximize the potential of TeacherMatic and AI. Another thing is this transparency. So the students and yourselves, of course, should understand there are limitations of AI tools, and this would encourage, like a conversation about the use of AI and its weaknesses. So that, with that being said, very, very, very important that we cover them. Because with, as I said before, with great power comes a lot of responsibility, and as teachers we do have to be responsible in the use of AI, and we have to use it safely, ethically, and responsibly. Okay, so with that being said, let's have a look at some of these generators that we've recently redeveloped and improved, and ones that we've created from scratch based on feedback from our community. So this one was available for a while, but with the latest updates in these large language models, and specifically GPT-4o, I think it does a much better job. So with this one, let's have a look, and then I can just show you what it is, what it can do, which is just incredible. And while I load this up, I will give you some anecdotes. And what I mean by this is that I was in FE for over 20 years, and I used to teach. I was a tutor on the BTEC level 3. So at the beginning of the year, I used to get students to write passages of text to tell me why they applied for this IT course. I wanted to see their level of dedication, their passion, and obviously their level of grammar and spelling and punctuation. Now, the issue is that I had 5 classes. On average, I had 25 students per class. So if you do the maths on that, you know, it would take me a considerable amount of time to give that SPAG feedback. And I wish I had this tool when I was in the classroom. So what we'll do is we're going to launch TeacherMatic, and I'm going to write just the word SPAG. Click on that magnifying tool. We get the SPAG generator here, right? Okay, so the SPAG feedback, there it is. I'm going to click on the use button. And what you can do with this one is you've got 2 options. You could either upload the student's work, whether that's a PDF or a Word document, or actually paste the text. And what I've done is I've simulated some text as if it's coming from a student, right? Where are we? Come on, there you go. And this boy's name is Josh, and he's telling me why he's applying for this level 3, right? It's got some spelling and grammatical issues. So as I said, I don't know, this would have taken me at least half an hour to mark it. So what I could do is paste that text in there, click generate. It highlights the strengths of the writing, right? So here, Josh expresses a strong interest in ICT and provides personal examples of his skills and experiences. Excellent. It's giving me the writing style. So it offers suggestions about the tone or the formality of the text. I'm not sure if you saw the text, but it was very informal and conversational. So it's highlighted that. It's giving me the spelling, right? And points out obviously the common or repeated spelling errors. And then with the punctuation, it identifies issues with missing or incorrect punctuation marks. With the grammar, it highlights grammatical errors such as incorrect tenses or sentence structures. And then what's really good, I think, which is excellent, is what could have went better. So it provides a summary of ways to improve the writing holistically, okay? So obviously, you have to look at this feedback, and then you have to critically evaluate, make sure it is on point. And what I would do is I would put my own touches. But as you can see, it's really giving me a big head start. Now, if I wanted to, just to show you what you can do with some of these tools, I can actually copy the spelling here, right? The spelling, and I'll duplicate the tab. And if I wanted to, and it just shows you the power of AI and personalized learning, I could actually give this specific student, a personalized quiz based on their mistakes. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to I copied those spelling mistakes, I put them in there, and I just pasted it in there, and I'm going to do 10 questions here, right? And as easy as that, it's going to create a quiz based on those spelling mistakes that the student then can practice. Right, and I'll be using probably Microsoft Teams and Forms, of course, and then I'll be able to send just the quiz to that one particular student. I mean, how powerful is that? We could even take it a step further. So I'll duplicate tab, and I can create some smart targets based on those spelling mistakes. I'll just write the word smart, click on the use, and just do exactly the same thing. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, but let's see what it comes up with. What I want to show you is don't be, limited. You can just copy and paste and see what the results are. And obviously, it's, third person. I will probably have to change that, but you can see what it's done. It's given me a really good head start and created a smart target in literally seconds for me. So that's the SPAG, right, which is really powerful, extremely powerful. The other one, which is even more comprehensive, and it is very, very impressive, and it's been redeveloped very recently. And before we do that, I'm just going to click on this generator information icon. And this is and I highly recommend that you go through this and you read it. So as I said, I would highly recommend that you click on the generator information icon. You can click it here, or when you click on use, click it over here. And I highly recommend that you read through this, because what it has a rubric. And this is a generic rubric that we can use in order to mark the student's work. So do go through this information in your own time. So with that being said, let's click on the use button. And you've got a couple of options here. You can paste the assignment, you can, type the assignment title. So that's the assignment. So what was the assignment title? In my case, with that simulated text, I could say why I applied for this IT course, right? You could also upload the assignment brief itself, right? Which is fantastic. And you can copy and paste the assignment brief here. So a couple of ways. So in my demo today, I'm just going to put the assignment title and I'll say why I applied for this IT course. Okay, imagine that was my assignment title. So just like before, you've got the same options, right? Like the SPAG. You can upload the submitted file, whether that's a Word or a PDF, or you can paste the student's submitted work. So I'm going to paste the submitted text and I'm going to paste the same one, the simulated work that I showed you before. Okay, there you go. My name is Josh and all the rest of it. Right now, this is where it gets really interesting. So you got different types of feedback. You've got formative assessment, which is to help improve learning, as we've just said in those brackets. You got summative assessment, and you got informal advice. Now, if I click on informal, I can select the level. So imagine I used to teach on level 3, so I would select level 3 because it would mark it based on level 3 and give me feedback based on that level. But if I go and click on formative, then what I get is that I can select a grading level, right? Look at that, much more comprehensive. I can select a generic rubric, and I did show you an example what that generic rubric is. You can also upload an assignment-specific rubric, and of course, do not grade the work feedback only, right? So a number of things that you can do, and obviously in your own time, you need to explore these different options. So if we select a generic rubric, which is what I showed you before here, and then select level 3, let's see what it does. So I'm going to click on generate here. All right, so brilliant. So look what it's done. So the student Josh explains his interest in technology. So it's given us a summary of the submitted content and then given us some detailed feedback, as you can see here. Right, and then the final summary of the feedback. And then based on the TeacherMatic rubric, it's given us the grade here. So grammar was very poor in spelling, wasn't it? Right. Structure and organization, analysis, poor application. So you get the idea of the feedback that it really does give. So obviously we can upload our own, but this time I'm going to select a grading scale and I'll go for level, I'll do excellent to poor, okay? And then click on regenerate and see what it does there. Let's see. So once again, it's given us a summary of the submitted content, right? There's the detailed comments, right? And then the final summary and then a grade. So it's giving it fair. Obviously, once again, I'm going to reiterate, you need to supplement this feedback with your own critical evaluation and judgment. And you are the, the final authoritative sort of judge of this. And it would be extremely unprofessional to just give this to any student, say, here's your feedback. Obviously, just go through it and make sure that this is a reflection of the student's work. So in summary, these are the two generators that we've developed, and we want to reiterate once again, with great power comes a lot of responsibility. So do use these generators, with all of these things that we've mentioned today in mind. And it's just so interesting how the conversation has moved from where people are expressing an interest in using AI to give feedback and marking, whereas a year ago, the conversations were much different. And it looks like we're heading towards that because obviously this is, you know, a dramatic change and something that has been untested. So with that being said, what we can do is now open this very fascinating topic, interesting topic, to a Q&A and get your thoughts about this. All right, so that concludes my deep dive, and now we're going to open up for a Q&A. So thank you.